The sun had begun its slow descent behind the city skyline, casting long shadows over the crowded streets. Traffic hummed in a constant rhythm, punctuated by the occasional shout of a street vendor or the blaring horn of a taxi trying to squeeze through the narrow lanes. Amidst the bustle, she walked with careful, measured steps, her small frame swathed in a threadbare coat that had seen far too many winters. Every so often, she paused, clutching the worn edges of her basket, as though it were a lifeline rather than just a container for her meager belongings. Her stomach protested, a sharp, gnawing ache that refused to be ignored. She had not eaten in 2 days, and the pangs of hunger were growing more insistent with every step she took. Yet, she had no money to buy even a simple loaf of bread, no coins jingling in her pocket to be exchanged for a warm meal. The city, with all its lights and glamour, seemed indifferent to her struggle. People brushed past her, faces buried in their phones, eyes averted as if she were invisible, as though her very presence was a kind of inconvenience in their carefully ordered lives. She glanced down at the basket once more. Inside, a few scraps of stale bread were all that remained from the morning. Even that meager portion had been rationed over the past day, eaten in small, quiet bites that left her stomach unsatisfied but her dignity intact. Hunger was not new to her. Hunger had been a constant companion since childhood, a shadow that followed her silently, reminding her of the fragility of her existence. Yet, despite it all, she carried herself with a certain quiet pride. She refused to beg outright, refused to lower herself more than she already had been forced to. She would ask, if she must, but with humility, with respect, and never with desperation. The streets were alive with movement. Vendors called out, offering their wares with practiced enthusiasm. The smell of roasted chestnuts mingled with the aroma of freshly baked bread, the scent curling around her like a cruel temptation she could not afford. Children ran past her, laughing and clutching ice creams that dripped down their small hands, oblivious to the hunger that gnawed at her. Women with shopping bags hurried along, exchanging hurried smiles, while men in business suits strode with confident purpose, heads held high, unaware of the invisible struggles of those they passed. She had learned to move among these people with careful invisibility. A shift of her eyes here, a polite nod there, a soft smile when someone accidentally bumped into her. It was a delicate dance, one she had perfected over years of necessity. She knew when to make herself noticed and when to disappear, when to speak and when silence would serve her better. And yet, tonight felt different. There was a tension in the air, a kind of electric anticipation she could not place. It was then that she saw him, a man who seemed to belong to a different world entirely. He stepped out of a sleek black car, the kind with tinted windows and polished chrome that reflected the city lights. His suit was impeccable, tailored to perfection, the fabric whispering of wealth and privilege. A watch gleamed on his wrist, and the faintest hint of a cologne lingered around him. Sophisticated, expensive, and unmistakable. He moved with a calm authority, his eyes scanning the crowd as if he were both part of it and entirely above it. Her heart pounded in her chest. She had seen men like him before, from a distance, in magazines or on television. Men whose wealth and power created invisible walls that ordinary people could not breach. But today, something compelled her to step forward, to bridge that vast, unspoken gulf. She clutched the basket tighter, took a deep breath, and approached him, her voice trembling slightly but carrying a note of dignity she refused to lose. "May I have your leftovers, sir?" she asked, careful to keep her tone polite, almost formal. The man froze. His stride faltered, his eyes widening slightly in surprise. It was not the request itself that caught him off guard. It was the way she had spoken, the way she had looked at him. Her gaze was steady, unflinching, not pleading or desperate, but quietly imploring. There was a depth in her eyes, a clarity that seemed to cut through the superficiality of the city around them. It was as if, in that brief moment, the noise of the world had faded, leaving only the two of them in a suspended space where nothing else existed but the unspoken connection between their souls. He studied her for a long moment. There was a spark there, something he could not name, something that resonated deep within him. He saw her fascia, the soft curve of her cheek, the slight weariness etched around her eyes, the hint of determination that refused to be extinguished. He saw her hands, small and delicate, yet strong from years of carrying burdens no child should have to bear. He saw the basket she held, and in it, the remnants of a life that demanded resilience beyond her years. For a moment, the city around them disappeared. The blaring horns, the shouting vendors, the rushing pedestrians all faded into insignificance. He realized he had never truly looked at a person like this before. He had never allowed himself to see the raw, unvarnished humanity in someone's eyes. And in that realization, a strange warmth began to grow in his chest, a feeling that bordered on awe, tinged with an unfamiliar sense of responsibility. "Are you a broken bar hungry?" he asked softly, almost afraid to shatter the fragile connection between them. She nodded, a faint smile brushing her lips, the humility and hope intertwined in a single gesture. "Yes, sir." "Just a little, if you could spare a broken bar." Her voice faltered, but she did not break eye contact. She did not bow excessively or lower herself further. She simply offered the truth, honest and unembellished, and in that honesty, there was a dignity that transcended the circumstances. The man's heart ached in a way he had never experienced. He reached into his pocket, fingers brushing the leather of his wallet, and then stopped. The money he could give her seemed trivial, almost meaningless in comparison to the life she had endured. He looked at her again, and in her eyes, he saw not weakness, not poverty, but a kind of courage that made the world seem smaller, more intimate, more human. He took a deep breath, and with a gesture that surprised even him, he handed her a bag of fresh food, bread, fruit, and other small items that seemed luxurious in her eyes. She gasped softly, the weight of the gesture pressing upon her heart in a way that made her knees weak. She wanted to say thank you, wanted to express her gratitude fully, but words seemed inadequate. So she simply nodded, eyes glistening, and held the bag close to her chest as if it were a treasure beyond measure. The man watched her for a moment longer, and then, almost instinctively, he handed her a small envelope as well. Her fingers trembled as she took it, unsure of what it contained, but feeling instinctively that it held more than just material value. It was an offering, a bridge between two worlds, a spark of hope cast into the darkness of her life. "Believe in yourself," he said quietly. "Even when the world forgets to see you, you are stronger than you know." She nodded again, swallowing hard, tears threatening to spill but held back by sheer will. She wanted to tell him that she would hold on to this moment and let it light the path ahead. But the words seemed too fragile, too fleeting, compared to the weight of what he had just done. So she simply smiled, a small, tentative smile that carried more gratitude and promise than any speech could convey. As he walked away, disappearing into the flow of the city, she felt a strange shift inside her. It was as if a door had opened in her heart, a door that had long been sealed by hardship and fear. For the first time in a long time, she felt the possibility of a different life, a life where she could be seen, truly seen, and where her worth was not measured solely by what she could survive but by who she was. She clutched the bag and the envelope to her chest and took a deep breath, feeling the cool evening air fill her lungs. The city still moved around her, still noisy and indifferent, but something had changed. Something miraculous had occurred, not in the form of magic or fantasy, but in the simple, profound act of recognition and kindness. Someone had looked into her eyes and truly seen her, and in that seeing, the world had shifted just enough to make hope possible again. Her steps, once hesitant and weary, now carried a quiet determination. She walked on, basket in hand, carrying not just food but a renewed sense of purpose. She would find a place to rest, a way to use this unexpected gift wisely, and perhaps, one day, she would pay forward the miracle she had received. The memory of his eyes, of the way he had paused to truly see her, would linger in her mind like a gentle flame, guiding her through the darkness that had once seemed endless. The streetlights flickered on, casting a soft golden glow over the pavement, and she felt a sense of calm that she had not known in years. Hunger would return, challenges would come again, but she now carried something far more sustaining than food, the knowledge that kindness existed, that miracles could happen in the most unexpected moments, and that even in a city that often turned its back on the suffering, there were hearts capable of seeing and responding to another human being's need. And so, with trembling hands but a steady heart, she continued her walk, the evening air wrapping around her like a gentle promise. She did not yet know how this moment would change her life, but she felt it in every fiber of her being that something extraordinary had begun, quietly, without fanfare, in the simplest of human gestures.